So it now gives me great pleasure to introduce Saira Salmon. Saira is a long-standing student of the ancient mystery teachings and is herself a teacher who seeks to share knowledge of the deep metaphysical truths which underpin our reality, and so help us to survive and thrive in the changing energies of our time. Saira is going to tell us about the dreamer in the land. So assuming Saira is ready, which actually I'm not sure she is. Are you there, Saira? Oh yes, sorry, yes, I couldn't see. Saira Salmon, thank you very much. I think you're on mute, Saira.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent,
Thank
wonderful.
you.
Right, the dreamer in the land. Who is the dreamer? This is the first question we need to ask. Who is the dreamer? What is it they do? What do they look like? What does it mean to be a dreamer in the land? These are never questions, if I'm absolutely honest, that I ever really set out seeking to find answers to. Although there's always been a very long time awareness of the concept of the dreamer in the land at the back of my psyche. And I assumed, if you'd ever asked me about it, I would have assumed that there was a Brythonic or a Celtic origin to the stories of this, but I sought to write about it. It was just over a year or so ago, and I went seeking through all the books I have, and the many. I even went on Google, and I could find no reference within the works that I have to the dreamer in the land. So I'm not actually sure where this awareness has come from, but there it is. And what I really want to share with you today is how I've come to understand actually who the dreamer is, because it's you and I who are the dreamers. And I've come to understand that this is really a very important energetic archetype for us to be working with at this time. And we need to be consciously aware of it and working with it very consciously. So I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey, a bit of a story, really recounting some of the adventures that I've had along the way in sort of coming to this understanding. And working with the land has been very, very fundamental in getting there. Now, I don't have to tell any of you, I'm sure, that we're living in extraordinary times at these moments. They're times that have been prophesized about for centuries, over many cultures and by many, many mystics. And extraordinary things, we're right in the middle of it, and extraordinary things are beginning to happen and to open up around us. And there is the potential for the earth at this time and humanity to make an extraordinary evolutionary leap in consciousness. That's what we're being told, and that's what you can begin to see play out around us. And it's probably not the first time in the Earth's history that this evolutionary leap has happened, because the fossil record hints that this has happened in the past, that it's part of one of the huge galactic cycles that unfold, where a series of conditions line up. And our solar system at the moment is in direct alignment with the energies which are pouring out of the galactic center. And this seems to be one of the things that's triggering it. But I'm going to speak a little bit more about that a bit further on. So at the moment, we're in the pathway of sort of regular waves of energy, which are coming out from the galactic core, sending an evolutionary stimulus down the timelines. And whether we choose to interact with that as human beings, whether we choose to interact with that energy or not, really is a free will choice, because that's one of the things that defines us, is that we are free will beings. So we are all being asked, will we engage with this process or not? And it's important, I think, to understand that. Because all of us need, in order to engage with it, to leave our comfort zones, the comfort zones of our beliefs, of our relationship with reality even, and what we think we understand about the world around us, because it is changing and it needs to change. So the stories I really want to tell you, they began about 4 years ago. As part of a series of mini pilgrimages that took place There were 4 of us doing these pilgrimages, and they were based around sovereignty in the land. We've been called to do some work around sovereignty in the land. And I'm going to start the tale at the Tower of London. It's not where these pilgrimages start, but it's where the first extraordinary thing that really started me on this process began. So there the 4 of us are at the Tower of London, sitting outside, having a cup of coffee, tuning into what we need to do. And it became very clear to us that we needed to make our way into the tower to St. John's Chapel. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with St. John's Chapel, it's in the White Tower, and it's where in times past the kings of England would spend the night before their coronation. They would spend the night on their knees at the altar in vigil and prayer before processing the next morning down the Sovereign's Way from the Tower of London to Westminster to be crowned. So it had very, very deep significance to the kingly energies that were actually overlighting the series of mini pilgrimages that we did. And again, for those of you who are not familiar with the White Tower, it is now set up today as an armory. So it's full of the weapons of war at every single level, and nestled somewhere within there is St. John's Chapel. And it's not always open. In fact, a lot of the time the chapel is closed to the public. So the 4 of us bought our tickets, made our way into the tower, around all of the suits of armor and things like this until we get to St. John's Chapel. And it was closed. There's an attendant before the barrier guarding the entrance into it. And next happens one of those extraordinary things that those of you who are familiar with pilgrimage know unfold. Never daunted, one of our party went up to the attendant, whispered something in her ear, and to this day I actually don't know what she said, but she murmured a few words in the attendant ear, and before we knew it, the attendant had turned around, whisked aside the rope barrier, let us through, put the barrier back in place, and gone back to standing guard. So there we were in St. John's Chapel. We had it all to ourselves. And I found myself pulled very, very strongly towards the altar, and was kneeling at the altar, beginning to go into a meditation, and found my awareness, my consciousness pulled very quickly down. And as my consciousness went down, the great god Bran came up to meet me. Now, Bran is a Brythonic god. He's one of the old gods of these lands. He was the last of the giants, they say. And when he died, he bade his men to cut off his head. It was a head of prophecy, to cut off his head and to bury it on Tower Hill, upon which the White Tower is built. And the legend has it that as long as his head is there, buried in the land will be safe. And the ravens who guard the tower are Bran's birds. So there I am, kneeling at the altar. Bran comes to meet me, and I can't tell you what Bran's message to me was, because I went so deep and I went down so far. I don't even know how long I actually spent kneeling there. But it wasn't until later that I realized it was quite an extraordinary moment in my life to be kneeling right where a long line of kings had knelt in the past, preparing to take on the sovereignty of the land. And even now, today, 4 years on, I still don't know what Bran had to impart, but a lot has taken place since then. So much has unfolded, and it was that night, that very night, when I returned from the tower, that I first met Ellen of the Ways. Now, some of you, I am sure, have heard of Ellen and are familiar with her. At that particular point, despite the fact, since childhood I've been reading myths and legends, I hadn't heard of Ellen at that particular point. And there are no great myths around her. The only myth you're likely to find is one in the Mabinogion, the Welsh tales. And it is very clearly a later myth. It's an overlay, because the hero of that particular tale is based on the Emperor Maximus, the Roman Emperor Maximus. So it's a Roman tale, really. But she is a very, very ancient goddess, a very ancient goddess. She goes back to the time when the primordial forests covered these lands, and not just these lands, Europe as well, because they're aware of her in Europe. And she's an antler goddess. She has antlers on her head, and these denote great, great wisdom. And her name, Ellen of the Ways, also denotes her guardianship of the deer trods, the animal tracks, the ancient roads, the lanes, and the footpaths. But it goes beyond that, because it's not just the physical world. She guards much, or is guardian of much, much more. She's much more layered and much more multidimensional. She guards the sovereignty of the land, and along with that, she stands as guardian of the energy lines, the ley lines, the sinuous dragon paths, the song lines, which connect the energy centers and the sacred places of the earth. And she bestows balance between the various energies of the land and between its great cycles. And I have also come to understand that she is the guardian of the inner pathways that we follow. She is guardian of the pathways in the worlds behind our eyes, the shamanic journeys and the dream ways, and the interdimensional pathways between worlds, between realms, as well as the star paths which are beginning to open up to us. So my first introduction to Ellen of the Ways. Some weeks later, we were in Windsor. The four of us met up in Windsor. That was the next port of call on this series of mini pilgrimages. And once again, we're sitting outside in a cafe, having a cup of coffee, trying to decide, what it is we need to do. Now, within Windsor, those of you who've been to Windsor Castle know that within the castle itself, there is a chapel called St. George's Chapel. And two of our party felt called very strongly to go into the chapel. I didn't, I have to say. I felt very, very strongly called to connect with the land around the castle. So the other member of our party joined me. Two went into the chapel, and two of us started to circle the castle walls looking for a patch of green to sit down on. And we found this patch of green on a very, very busy corner. It was an incredibly busy corner, with a little patch of green before a fountain. So sat down on the earth, started to go into meditation again. And once more, my awareness got taken down very, very quickly, down into the land. And I found myself in the presence of a huge dragon residing beneath the castle. And to be frank with you, I'm not sure who was more surprised, the dragon or me. The dragon clearly wasn't expecting me. And this was my first encounter with a dragon. I didn't know whether to sort of stand still, run, what to do. But anyway, once we got past all of that, the dragon gave me, during my time with him, the dragon gave me some amazing teachings and some amazing understandings, which I do remember this time around. And it included a very, very clear visual of the web of energy lines that spread across the land and the nodal points where the dragon energy stands guardian on the power points and the sacred spaces. Things began to unfold really quickly after that. I sold my house. Ellen called me. Ellen's call was very, very strong. I felt it very, very strongly. And I sold my house and moved. And within a few months later, I was living in the land of dragons here in Wales. It's where I am still at the moment. So I moved to the land of dragons. And it's here that not just my connection to the land, but my understanding of the role of dreamer sort of became deeper and deeper, and really started to expand, because the land here, I live in mid Wales, and the land here, this area is not that populated. It's one of the things that really appealed to me about it. And as a result of the fact there aren't huge human overlays about it, the land is very accessible. It's much more open. It's much more open to be able to tune into, to be able to access. you know, the land's voice is not being drowned in the way I certainly felt it. I was in the Midlands before that. And the old gods walk this land. I became aware of that very quickly. The old gods still walk this land. They're being pushed to the margins, to be sure, but they are still here. And the mythic qualities inhabit this land. I am fortunate enough to have, I've got some amazing hills. They're just shy of mountains that sit behind me, wonderful, soft feminine hills. And going up onto the top of those and looking out across the land, the mythic qualities of it really, really speak to you. So it's an amazing place to be, doing this work and exploring this path. And I can't go into all of the adventures I've had here because there isn't the time. But Ellen of the Ways has been very, very present and has guided me into meeting more dragons. You know, dragons are almost de rigueur here, as it were, but there's been the opening up of closed nodal points in stone circles, meetings with elemental land spirits, healing waters desecrated, trying to heal desecrated springs. There's even been a meeting with a well maiden, and that was extraordinary because I hadn't realized that there are still one or two places where the well maidens do still reconnect to this world, and it is a very, very, very beautiful space. And I live as well, again, I didn't know this when I moved to the area, but I picked an area where the last dragon in Wales is pinned down. The legend has it, there is a forest nearby called the Radnor Forest, and the legend has it that the last dragon in Wales was pinned down within the forest by the Archangel Michael. And the forest is surrounded by St. Michael churches to keep the dragon energy pinned down. And so the myth goes that if any of these churches fall into disrepair, the dragon energy will start to stir again. And that is obviously exactly what's happened because I've started to meet dragons. And when I looked into it, one of the churches had fallen into disrepair some time ago. So the dragons are beginning to stalk the land again. And it's very exciting. So living here has been a real education. There's been a real opening up within me of my ability to hear the land and its voice and to follow its whispers. So the next part of my story really comes forward a bit more. It was about 2 years ago, and it really started when I was introduced to the work of a gentleman called Rory Duff. Now, some of you again may be familiar as his work is becoming more and more well known. But Rory is a geobiologist and a scientist and also a master dowser, and he's taken it on himself, a mammoth task, an absolutely mammoth task, to put in place the first classification for the different types of Earth energy lines that encircle our planet. And there are many, many different types, all at different frequencies, different sizes, things like this. And he has, I don't have a copy of it here, but he's written a book, if you're interested, setting it all out. But one of the things that he became aware of in doing the work that he was doing is that he tripped across some new pairs of energy lines that nobody was particularly aware of up until that point. And these are massive. I mean, they are huge. And he called them the Emperor Dragon lines. And at the time I first met Rory, there were 3 Emperor Dragon lines that had manifested. There was a 4th that was just coming in at that particular moment, and Rory had every expectation of 2 sets more arriving, which they duly did in 2018 and 2019. So there are, in fact, 6 pairs of Emperor Dragon lines that now encircle the planet, and they are very, very wide, very unique. Because where Rory has discovered most of the energy lines around the Earth either originate from the Earth's magnetic core or from the effect of solar energies hitting the magnetic core, the Emperor Dragons have actually manifested in response to Earth's exposure to galactic energies. So it's cosmic energies coming in that has caused them to manifest at this particular time. So as I said to you earlier, our solar system is aligned with the galactic center. And normally there are very strong interstellar magnetic fields that really sort of sit between us and it, shielding ourselves, or acting as a shielding to the energies coming out. Now, these shieldings have disappeared for one reason or another. They've disappeared. They're no longer in place. Alongside that, our own solar system shielding has begun to weaken, as has Earth's. In fact, Earth's has weakened quite considerably. So a lot of the magnetic shields have all fallen, allowing this energy through, allowing this energy to bathe the planet and really expose us to the frequencies, the higher frequencies that can now reach us. And the emperor dragons are one of the results of this. So they are rare. There are indications, potential indications, that they have been here in the past. This is not their first time manifesting on the planet. And they are a very, very low frequency form of energy line. And if you want to know more of Rory's website, his books, and also he has a regular newsletter that are all very good sources of information at roryduff.com. So where two of these energy lines cross, we have a powerful node. There are not many of these nodal points actually on land. The majority of them are in the oceans. And of those that are on land, only a very small number are actually accessible to us. There are no emperor dragon lines in Britain. The nearest ones run through Europe. And the nearest nodal point where two of these cross is actually in southern Spain. And this node is what Rory calls a first order node. Now, a first order node, I mean, it's just got so much going on at it. A first order node has two emperor dragon lines crossing, two type 5 emperor dragon lines crossing. But it also has 4 pairs of type 4 lines going into this nodal point, 8 pairs of type 3 lines, and an assortment of type 1 and type 2 lines. So there's a lot of different lines that come to a nexus point here, carrying different levels of energies and frequencies. So it's a very, very powerful space. And these nodal points, not just the lines, but the nodal points as well, can interact with human consciousness. So, something quite amazing. And Rory decided in early 2020 that he would start to take some small groups to visit this node and to begin to work with it. And of course, we all know what happened in 2020. COVID came in, lockdowns, things like that. But again, as all of you know who do this work, there's an aspect to the way it's held and the way things are smoothed. And a couple of weeks before the tour was due to take place, the lockdown got lifted. And we were all able to make our way out to Spain. And there were 7 of us in this party, including Rory. So there we are in Spain, and we had what was one of the most extraordinary weeks of my life, if I'm absolutely honest. The hotel we stayed in was absolutely engulfed by one of the emperor dragon lines. They are so wide, it took in this entire hotel. So we spent, the 7 of us spent the week living and sleeping within the energies of this emperor dragon. And I have to say, it did actually cause some very interesting sleeping patterns and some very interesting dreams during that time. The second emperor dragon line that was making its way to the nodal point, we went and visited that one as well, spent some time on that one to acclimatize to its energies. And it was very interesting to note that they had a very different feel to them. There was a very different signature to the 2 different lines. And we have various other adventures, as well as going to the node. Rory took us to the node, which is not in a particularly easy place to find. And we spent time there in meditation, which none of us will forget and still plays out within all of us now. We are a very deeply bonded group. We still meet every single week, tuning into the node and the energies and working with the earth grids through these energies. It has been a life-changing experience for all of us. So, and everywhere we went, we were joined by other beings. Again, I've never had an experience like it so consistently. Everywhere we went, we were joined by other beings, particularly at the node. Initially, obviously with concern about the node to see what we were doing there, but then to work with us once they understood that our intent was benign. So there we are. We spent a lovely week there, and we literally got out of Spain by the skin of our teeth, because the day we were due to leave, the region of Spain that we were in locked itself down. And in the lovely way that these things unfold, we literally sped past the barricades as they were going up. In fact, while his mates were wrestling with the barriers, as we approached in our minivan, our minibus, one of the chaps sort of put his hand up to stop us, and it was almost like someone had taken his hand and put it down as we whizzed past and got to the airport. So we got out without having to be locked down, and we got back in without having to go into quarantine. 2 days later, quarantines were introduced. So there's a level at which, you know, magic happens and holds you when you do this kind of work. So we still meditate, as I said, on the node. We still tune into it. The power of it is growing. The power within the grids, again, anyone who's working at earth energy levels knows this, the power within the grids is just building and building and building. But at a personal level, one of the things that trip to the Emperor Dragons gifted me has been not just an ability to hold ever higher levels of energy to run them through my system. I mean, that envelope has expanded and expanded and expanded, but also my own inner sight and my own inner knowing has just, you know, it's extraordinary. What's coming through now is extraordinary. So I've seen, and I know the others have as well, has seen a huge expansion in our ability to tune in. And I've found myself turning more and more to shamanic techniques and tools, because these are the ways that our ancestors had. They, you know, whether you call them druids or shamans or Amanithians or whatever it might be, the tools and techniques are very, very similar to be able to tune in and understand what's going on. And as a result of this, I have found my consciousness traveling not just within the land, not just connecting with beings on this land, but through the interdimensional portals and also the cosmic pathways which are beginning to open up. There is an extraordinary expansion taking place, and Ellen of the Ways is still very much here, still very much guiding me and showing me new tracks and new pathways. But as I said, these are now as likely to be a star path or a pathway between interdimensional realms, or a bridge of some sort, as it is to be a pathway within the land here. And these are paths that we all can, and I believe all will follow if we wish to, that are awakening up. And we will all be way showers to each other as this unfolds. Because what I am seeing so clearly is that the microcosmic energy systems of the earth are being interconnected once more to a vast macrocosmic stellar matrix from which the earth was disconnected many, many ages ago. And the earth herself, Gaia herself, is dreaming herself back into connection at this level. And there are many different kinds of beings from many realms which are supporting this. So we too are a part of this. We too are being given the choice at this time whether we want to interact and become part of this wave of evolutionary energy that is enabling this to happen, or if we wish to stand back and not take things forward. Because there is the potential here, and the prophecies speak of this. There is the potential here for a new golden age ahead of us. We've been told this. There's the potential for a new age of light ahead of us. But we all have a part to play in whether that happens or not. Whether humanity is here or whether we wipe ourselves off the face of this planet is very much one of those free will choices that we all have to make. And it depends upon the level of consciousness that we are individually each prepared to allow in. You know, we need sufficient of us to actually raise the overall level sufficiently. And in order to do that, we have to expand our understanding of ourselves. We have to understand expand our understanding of who we actually are as cosmic beings of light, basically, you know, part of a galactic community. And it's very much as Peter said, we have to reach in and we have to become the Grail, not just the Grail. We have to sort of reach into that part of us that is capable of becoming the Holy Grail. So the ancient myths talk to us of this, and they talk to us time and time again over cultures and you know, over myths and things like that. They talk of times when the gods came down to earth, star beings walk the land here, and as I understand it, you know, we need to awaken once more to this understanding of ourselves, that we are part of this great galactic community that wishes to open once more to us and is taking the earth back into her. Because as I said to you, the dreamer in the land is every single one of us. It's every single one of us, and what we can envisage and what we can bring through really depends upon each of us expanding our view and understanding of who we are. We need to be able to sort of spread our wings and really set our imaginations free to soar, really to soar, following the higher frequencies where they wish to take us, because they're inviting us to dream of vastly, vastly more expanded and magical versions of who we currently think ourselves to be. And the question is, will you allow that? Will you allow that, or will you pull in the wings of your dream, you know, telling yourself it's not possible, you know, this isn't who you are? Will you limit what's you know, the potentials that are there? Do you want to stick with what you know, with this broken, rather fractious, divisive system, you know, the highly stressful and disconnected ways of being and living that we currently exist within? Or do you want to begin to lend your energy to something bigger and something better? Do you want to begin to lend your energy to those who are dreaming of a very different type of a world where education systems value the uniqueness of each individual, where everyone does work they love, where, you know, family-friendly work practices are the norm, where systems of government and corporate leadership are benign and work, you know, for the benefit of all of us, not just the benefit of the few, and where the earth on which we live is valued and we have deep connection and deep relationship with her. Why shouldn't we dream this dream? Why shouldn't we reach for it? Because in doing that, we can begin to reconnect again with other dimensional beings, with the star paths, and with the birthright that is humanity's. I believe very much is humanity's. They have been, as I'm beginning to understand, they have been part of Earth's past, and all of this will be again. So my question to you is, do you want to remember this? Do you want to begin to dream in the new Earth anew? Or do you want everything to stay the same, to just stay in the same old low vibrational frequencies which have held the Earth and humanity captive for so long and caused such damage? Because as Peter talked about becoming, this really is, we are being asked to become. We are asked to really expand into, step into the full potential of what it is to be a human being. We have lost a connection with that part. We are disconnected. We have so many wrong beliefs. There's been so much deliberate manipulation that keeps us small, very deliberately keeps us small. And within this, you know, I see so deeply the seeds of so much suffering. And we have a choice to begin to step out of it, and the energy at every single level. At every single level, and otherworldly beings are really supporting us and in our process of becoming that, if we wish to. And if you were to ask me now what I do, if I'm honest, I really don't have a word for it. I would say to you, it's something like, you know, I help people come back to themselves, or come back to who we really are. I help people step into the fullness of being. And I myself am still in this process. It's still unfolding before me. And to be quite frank with you, it dazzles me. It absolutely dazzles me. And it is huge fun. It is such fun. I just am loving every second of it. And it's waiting there for all of us to pick this up and to play with it. So, you know, we're being asked to be all that we can be. And it's about looking forward, and it's about dreaming big dreams, dreaming vast dreams. But it's also a time of remembrance. There is an aspect of this that requires us to look backwards as much as look forwards, to remember who we are, where we came from. It has been said time and time again that we're a species with amnesia, and we are a species with amnesia. We have forgotten so much of our past, so much of where we came from. And if we're looking to reconnect with our hidden intergalactic, interdimensional origins, the stellar origin, the stellar star origins that we have in the past, we need to incorporate that sense of who we are in our understanding of ourselves. The myths tell us very clearly that in the past, the gods walked the earth. It is said of this coming time that we shall be the gods. The gods will walk the earth once more, but this time we shall be the gods. Now, we clearly have a lot of work to do at this level. But from what I see, it's possible from, you know, just listening to what Peter talked about, becoming the Grail, picking up and working with our Grail wisdom, our inner Grail wisdom, and developing that. There is a future waiting for us to claim. And the question is, will you? We need to gather from our past. We need to gather the seeds of wisdom that have been left for us by the ancients, because these are reference points for us. These are reference points for the coming age, to create a living wisdom out of it. And to be able to carry it forwards, we need to reclothe in clothes fit for the new age, the wonderful seeds of wisdom that our ancestors have kept safe. So I asked you at the beginning, and I'm going to ask you again, who is the dreamer? Who is the dreamer? And I say again, we are all dreamers. You are the dreamer. I am the dreamer. The dreamer in the land is us. We're dreaming in the land. We're dreaming reality into being. And we're all of us, every single one of us at this moment in time is being called to wake up and become active dreamers, not passive, unconscious dreamers, dreaming the nightmare we see, but to become conscious, active dreamers, deliberately thinking of what we want and dreaming big visions, becoming conscious dreamers at this time in being, because there is a vast part of ourselves which has lain slumbering through this last age of sort of density and unconsciousness. We need to call it back in. We need to become all that lies waiting within us. We need to become an active participant in calling in the new earth, because that, my friends, is the real work that we're all here to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. That was an amazing talk. So inspirational and lovely that you find it such fun as well. I'm really delighted by that, because I think, well, for me anyway, so often one feels one wishes to change the world to something better. and thinks, oh, it's so hard, it's so difficult. But as you say, with allowing oneself to dream those great dreams and calling in the helpers, and also expanding that sense of the land to take in the entire cosmos, is very inspirational and encouraging. So thank you very much. Wonderful.